You know what time it is?
What time?
2021.
That's not a time. That's a year.
Not a time.
It's the year of Boston Uprising.
Oh, wow.
How did that chant go? Up, rise, up, rise.
I think it was Rise Up.
Yeah, I think it was Rise Up.
Could have been Rise Up. Could have been Rise Up. Well, the important news is...
Yeah.
You know how they talk about the multi-dimensional stuff? I feel like Bren was in a different dimension of Overwatch League compared to everybody else. He was just in his own little
every week. That's why I predicted
his own little shard of Overwatch League or whatever the fuck it is.
Yeah, really 2018 was the year of Boston. Boston have been good before.
In
People
stage
always forget
3,
about that.
when they had Krusty as a coach.
Yeah, perfect stage.
Since then, not the case. But 2021 is an oh god, yeah. I mean, whoa. Seeing a couple of names there that we want to just brush right over and head straight back into 2021.
Yep, there you go, Kurt. Nice job.
The way we're doing this one is a little bit different. If you saw it by the join date, Kurt, we're not going to go over the tanks and the DPS and the support line. We're going to go over the recent additions, including the one that's inactive at the bottom there because he is currently 17, but will be of age by the time the Overwatch League rolls around.
Hey, Matt, guess when Valentine's birthday is? Guess when he turns 18?
When?
Valentine's Day.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
That's why his name's Valentine.
There you go.
No way.
Yeah, because he's born on February 14th.
Yep.
Who would have guessed?
Not me.
That's crazy.
Yeah, not
me. Is that even true?
It is true.
No, it is. It's true.
Ignore his Wikipedia. You'll see.
He turns
Is that
18.
cool or cringe?
I think it's kind of cool because you would never know until you dug into...
Yeah, until you looked into it.
Yeah, until you looked into it.
I find it kind of cool. He's got purpose behind the name. Johnny, you've never given us the purpose of your name.
True.
Valentine also, it's a cool name. Like, if you were born on, I don't know. Like, if you were born on, Easter and your gamer tag was Easter, I feel like that's, not... It's really not that good.
No, it wouldn't be that. It would be Jesus.
What?
Celebrating the resurrection of Christ.
First of all, Easter wasn't on the same day every year, so it wouldn't even work. That's a pointless comparison. Secondly, what are you talking about? Valentine's Day, Valentine. Easter, Jesus.
Yeah, the resurrection of Jesus Christ.
Right, but why would you... I mean, that's like saying Christmas you'd call yourself Jesus.
No, I call yourself St. Nicholas.
You do live in a different dimension, mate. You live in a different world.
Let's get into the roster. Because
or if you were born on the 4th of July and named yourself 4th of July.
No, you call yourself Sam.
Or Independence Day or whatever. It's...
Independence. Flex support.
I have been up for years. Can we get into this fucking review? I think I can swear. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, go for it.
We're deep enough in.
Oh, you're the host.
Yeah, well, I'm okay.
Do the job.
It's been recording for 12 hours.
Starting with the latest additions. Essentially, what's happened is they've got Levi. Is it Levi or what's it?
Laurie.
That's the name.
Laurie
as a coach is introduced into this team. Laurie is the new head coach of the Boston Uprising, and with his introduction, he brought alongside a bunch of new players who've been playing. I'm 37, who some of you probably know from the Toronto Defiant, but was playing on WGS alongside
former
Faith
commissioner of the Overwatch League,
Valentine. Yep, not quite a commissioner yet.
No,
but
Matt's gone in for his job now. Matt's worked his way in from the talent side to become commissioner.
Yeah,
I'm trying to be. I'm 37,
but he's only 32. Don't worry about it.
Yeah,
he'll get there.
But we've got these additions coming in. Valentine playing the flex DPS role, Faith playing the main support, generally speaking. I'm 37 in a more hit scan-esque role. That's what he's being solidified as. And that is the latest and newest additions to the Boston Uprising. Now, I'll give my quick thoughts on it, and then we can go around as well and talk about this. But I just spent an hour and a half watching Faith and Valentine, and I'm 37, actually. And my general impression was average. My heart rate didn't go up. It just kind of stayed the same. You know? I was watching it and I was like, all right, it looks serviceable. The shining light in my eyes is, I use that term a lot, but Valentine, I think, in terms of his individual play on largely Echo, to be honest. Yeah. It leaves a lot of questions for me coming into this season. And it's, what is this roster trying to do here with these additions? Because I think they're going to be upgrades over previous years, but I'm still left wondering how the end result is going to look. And with the rest of the season, with the rest of the teams leveling up, I don't know. I'm not
I kind
optimistic.
of like what they got going on here. I'm a bit of a fan. Okay, I've been studying a lot of these teams now, and there's obviously a ton of talent coming out of Korean contenders.
Yeah,
and I feel the same way with some of these players that I'm like, I can see that they have it, but they need to take like one more step to be able to like really bring it to the Overwatch League and like compete with some of the top teams. And we'll talk about some of those. But like Valentine, like I watched some of Valentine's gameplay and I'm like, he is good, undoubtedly. I wanted to compare him to someone who was really flexible, and like Rascal come to mind, but like I don't want to say Rascal because like I say him so much. Who is there like an individual that's like Rascal, but not as like on
EQO?
Maybe like EQO. Yeah, maybe like that. I mean, I watched Valentine play and I'm like, this is a good player, you know? And like he could put in some like really good carry performances. I like Faith as well. Like as a main support, I think Faith seemed like a very logical player that like didn't rush it, didn't do too many erratic plays or anything. Like he seemed like a very solid, logical kind of main support player. And you put him alongside Myeongbong, and I'm like, you got a good backline going. You got Valentine who can like put some plays in. Pair up Valentine with Soon, and you got like two players that can really make plays and like stand up for themselves. We'll talk more about this roster, but I think, Bren, looking at the entire thing, that I'm a bit more optimistic about this team and their prospects.
They have like a Valiant of last year type of vibe about them. I feel like they're kind of going under, maybe not under the radar now, like after these pickups, but I feel like they've put together a really solid team. But I think it's we were obviously less high on the Vancouver Titans, which we did the last time. It's like, is this team good enough to win against some of the top teams in NA? I'm not sure, but will this team be like in that middle of the pack? I think absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about that because it's funny you compare them to the Vancouver or to Valiant, because I look at this team and the way they've been put together, and it's clear that Laurie has just come into this team and obviously has high opinions of some of the players that he's coached before.
Yeah.
It's not the case where the Valiant, where they run extensive trial systems to find diamonds in the rough. Like, we actually have tape on these players, and my opinion of it is that they're not going to be world beaters, you know? These players are going to come in and they're going to do a serviceable job. But when you're the Boston Uprising, is that what you want? You just want players to come in and do a serviceable job? I feel like you want to be aiming for some real stars here.
Well, let's take things one step at a time. Boston have been just languishing at the bottom of the table for 2 years now.
Yeah.
2019, 2020 were very unkind to the Boston Uprising after they genuinely had some excellent scouting off the back of Krusty's coaching in 2018. And I think any step up the table is a great step for Boston. And I don't think that they need to be aiming for a superstar roster for their fans to get excited. And I know that that's where you're coming from, Bren, is like, well, if they're just okay, then that's still just, they're going to get beaten a lot because there's such good teams in the league right now.
Yeah,
but
I didn't say my point correctly. I didn't really explain it too well. But when I say like superstar team, I want them to take risks on talent. You know what I mean?
Right.
And maybe that's what they're doing here. Maybe Laurie feels like they just couldn't be pushed into the right direction. But I feel like if you couldn't do that when he was coaching them in contenders, what makes him think he's going to be able to do it surrounded by the structure of Boston? I
would like to disagree with that, though, as well, in the sense that Laurie actually did manage to get a title win. They won Korean contenders using 3 of these players.
Yeah.
I'm 37, Faith, and Valentine, which Valentine was subbing in and out, but the others were pretty much mainstays. Faith actually subbed in and out a little bit as well. But the overall point being is that they've already reached, for a very small period of time, the pinnacle of contenders. And even though I think you can still think that someone has a lot of potential and it hasn't been maximized, but you've gotten a bit out of them.
Which I think is where Johnny's
opinion is. You either want more time
right?
or you want more kind of better competition to try them against.
Yeah, which is what you were saying,
what a
right,
stick
Johnny?
that was.
Yeah,
I mean, I wasn't completely listening to Josh's point because I was thinking by myself or watching the game. But yeah, something like that. No, for real though. I actually have something to say about this, but we'll get there later. Okay, I don't want to kick off this because I have like a side storyline or like a side question when we'll discuss the overarching team, but I don't want to go there immediately. Like I want to discuss the players individually that they have on the roster right now and their prospects.
I kind of wanted to start with Laurie though.
Yeah.
Is that all right? I mean, Laurie's a really successful coach from Contenders. We've seen he seems to be pretty well respected by players that he's been with in the past, which is always a good sign for a coach. Often, if coaches are bad, players won't talk about them at all. It's not like they're going to shit talk them, but they just don't mention them at all. So if players speak very highly of coaches, it's normally a good sign. Then you just look on paper. He was able to take a team that wasn't really full of great talent on paper, and, you know, some people like I'm 37 who we've already seen in the league actually not be that successful and take them and win a title with them. And then as soon as Laurie stepped back from WGS, they ended up bombing out of Gauntlet and looked like they were totally lost in that meta, which might not speak that highly of the players themselves, but does seem to lend credence to the fact that Laurie knows what he's doing. Unless it's a wild coincidence, but generally speaking, those are good single pieces of evidence that Laurie will be a good coach for the Boston Uprising, and something that they have been literally missing since Krusty. Like that's been one of the large reasons why Boston has not succeeded, is because their scouting has been poorer because they haven't had great coaching, and their depth of roster and their strategy and their understanding has all been hampered by it as well.
Yeah. I mean, they had Mineral for the last like 2 years, right?
I think
it was
GM, right?
He was like mandated. I thought he was the coach.
He was at some point.
He was, and then he stepped back.
But I think they had someone else though before Mineral, didn't they? Maybe not.
He joined before last season, because he joined in September of 2019. So
right, but who was coaching them in 2019? That's what I mean. They had a different coach then. I just can't remember who it was.
I don't know.
Was it just her?
I think
like, they had like a bunch of assistant coaches like Gunba, Shake, Ilka, Mini, Spa.
Right.
I'm pretty sure Mineral was the like coach or manager of that as well.
I feel so dumb.
You think Mineral came in straight after Krusty? I don't think that's how it went.
No. It was I think the season after,
they may have
right?
interim head coaches, but
they had like an interim.
The trouble is they've had such a messy
the
history with the structure of this team that I don't know what the timeline is.
Yeah.
But you make a good point. Like, this is probably one of the first times in a long time that you've had some real clear structure that's going to be guiding these players, which is something that Boston's been missing for the longest time. And the amount of times that we go on and on and on, especially me, about coaching and the importance of it, this is a prime example of a team actually doing right for once, given the accolades, given how highly the players speak at Laurie. Yeah. And maybe
so someone that isn't listed here, sorry, Bren, someone that isn't listed here is Baroy as well. And I think that's a good addition to the coaching staff, Bren. So, sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, maybe I'm just in a depressive mood, just about a state of the world in my life, but that might mirror my opinions of this team. But I also just have high expectations of any team. I think that I think every team, I don't know, I have a skewed mentality. I feel like most teams should be aiming for the stars, or at least want to. I'm not really content with just the idea of just being better than last year in a minor way.
I think that's an important first step.
It is an important first step.
You've got to walk before you can run, I think. For a team like Boston to recover themselves after 2 years.
Well, that's what I mean. I'm admitting it's a flawed viewpoint.
Yeah,
but when I look at teams, I just want them to be aiming truly for the best. And I feel like with a Boston Uprising, maybe you take more risks. Now, having said that, I think, Johnny, you brought up an excellent point when you're talking about Myeongbong and Faith as a backline for the support, because you don't want just two absolute crackheads. Myeongbong, we know, can turn on the crackhead any moment he wants to. And Faith seems like he will just be rock solid next to him, which is what you really want. You don't want Faith to be inting. He is. I absolutely agree with your assessment. Is that he just seems like a reasonable main support that makes the correct decisions most of the time.
Yeah, I agree. I see where you're coming from, Bren. And I think actually that a lot of people in the community have the same kind of sentiment when they look at this roster in its entirety. The thing that really shifted my viewpoint of this entire roster when I looked at it was so like I have an Excel sheet going here that I like write down my points and rosters and everything. I bolded all the names that I liked about this roster, and I faded some of them. So once I faded, were actually Fusions, Colorex, and 37. Because I personally don't like 37. I understand like he comes in once in a while, has some good hit scan. Like I don't like his game. I don't think he's as good as people think it is. But then the bolded names, if you look at it on paper, the starting lineup: Stand 1, Punk, Soon, Valentine, Faith, Myeongbong. If you just look at those 6 players, like in a vacuum as a starting lineup, that's where it really shifted for me. And that's where we're like, that's a pretty bomb-ass starting lineup. So despite the fact that they have, Fusions on here as well, Color Hex, how he's going to be in this team, I just don't even consider those players anymore. Because I think that the starting 6 is by far better than those 3 players. And I don't know if they'll be integrated. They might be. Maybe subbed in a map here and there. But, I think for the most part, their starting 6 is just way better if you isolate them and look at them as like their starting 6.
I also think like it's really difficult to stand out on a team like as poor as Boston was last year. And we did see Myeongbong play really well. I think with a better team around him now, I think he can take his game to an even higher level. Which kind of like knocks them up a peg. And I know when you talk about like going for it all, Bren, I think there's a point where, like Josh said, you have to kind of like, walk before you run. And like for Boston, right, with how poor you've been, like if you put yourself in that like 4 through 8 conversation now, or 5 through 8, like, if you're really kind of pushing it, like that is a huge jump for a team like this. Sure. And then you kind of look at it like, oh, maybe they tinker again. Like, I think this is a year, though, where they added a lot of talent. They've, I think, more importantly, kind of gotten stable now with like Laurie and Baroy. And I think if they play well, I think this will be another spot where people will want to come play, in the years after, right? Where I think they set themselves up for better long-term success. Because if this team would have taken a risk on a ton of players and just bombed out again and then had to replace the coaching staff and the analysts and whatnot, like, you're starting at square one every single season. I think this gives them a better chance of like sustainable success.
I think I'll be short before you go, Sideshow. I'll be short. Sorry. But I think to that point, and to Bren's point as well, they've struck a perfect balance in my mind between bringing in new people, like Laurie bringing in 3 of his players, and then integrating it to the old team to build a culture and build a team with an identity. And that's what I think they've done perfectly here. Like, they're not doing like a Dallas Fuel where they're like, hey, this is Element Mystic now. Or like, they're not doing like, hey, we're picking up 1 or 2 players to add to last year. I think they struck a perfect balance building a new team identity that's not like too dominant in the new people coming in or the old ones from last year.
Yeah, for me, when I look at the Boston Uprising, I'm optimistic, but I think that they've done a decent job at tempering expectations. Like, they haven't picked up an all-star roster where you must place very highly, otherwise it is a failure. They've set their expectations to, we will be a decent team, and that's the expectation. And the only way to fail is if they completely cock it up and they're like as bad as they were last year, which I can't possibly see happening.
I mean,
I'd be amazed if this team ended in the bottom 3 in NA. I really would.
Yeah.
Like, it'd be shocking, right? Because you look at, you expect this team to be better than.
He's doing it again. He's doing it again. He's power rankings again, isn't he?
Fucking power rankings.
Yeah. You expect this team to be better than some of the other teams.
Looking at us.
You expect them to.
Are we going on to 8 Mile after this?
Which would prevent them from being all the way at the bottom.
Drop a 16 real quick.
Bro, you're coming at me. You get that horrible looking mushroom cut on the top of your head.
Look at you. Looking like
an in-sync reject over there. Like UK Joey Fatone, like over there, just looking like a mess.
Yo, earlier on today, Matt, we were recording the space episode, and he called you a 9 to 5 looking ass.
He did?
Which I thought was fantastic.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one.
I wanted to follow on your point about Myeongbong though, because I seriously think that even with all of the talent additions to this team, Myeongbong could still be the best player on the team. And that is on a team that still has Soon and Stand One, and I mean, I guess Valentine has the potential to be like the best player on the team as well. But Myeongbong is a really good player. I think people forget how incredible he was in Contenders the season before he got picked up. It is almost impossible for a player like Myeongbong to show his ceiling when he's capped by his team, right? Last year. And he still showed that he was way better than everybody he was playing with. But I really believe in this guy. As long as he hasn't fallen off just sheerly through leeching his talent out after a bad year of gameplay, which can sometimes happen if you have a year where you're sucking and you're not as motivated. It can be hard to get back into it, and you haven't been having that consistent practice and consistent top level performance, so maybe you don't improve as much as your peers. But if Myeongbong gets back to how he was playing previously, then he could still be the best player on this team, despite the fact that they've added so much more talent. Myeongbong, it has the potential, in my opinion, to be that good, like a true top level flex support that this team has always had, but now is surrounded by talent that he's actually going to be able to rely on to play his best.
I thought Punk played pretty well when Boston added him too. I think they added him and then they ended up beating the Gladiators like right
they had
after.
a honeymoon phase.
Yeah, they had a honeymoon period.
Well, yeah,
but
I mean,
I think he's another player who probably it gets better, obviously, with playing around better talent. Like, and I thought he was pretty decent. Like, is he going to be the best like off tank in the world? Like, maybe not. Like, can he be average to above average? I think so.
Well, also they have Gebulsi on their academy team as well.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
And even though I think Huck came out and said, I believe this is correct actually, I think Huck came out and said that they don't intend to move him to the main roster, but it's something they're working on. Like, he's a developmental player in their academy team, I think is kind of the gist of what he was saying. But that
was the point I wanted to bring up later. I was like, is Gabe Olsey going to be promoted to the main roster? How long does Punk last? There it is. Cat's out the bag.
You know? I mean, what do you think, Johnny?
No, well, I mean, because that was my point. I was like, I liked Punk as much as any other person who watched the Overwatch League last year, who was like impressed. And, McGravy also came out and said like he really respected Punk and like his off-tank play. So I think we all agree that. But like, how does Punk sync up with the rest of this team? I guess that is the question. You know, can he really flourish next to Stand One and some of these other players being brought in? Because I think a lot of people looked at Watch Contenders and were like, Gabe Olsey is very promising too. And him not being picked up alongside some of his former teammates is like kind of odd in that regard. So I could very well see a scenario where like 2 months into the season, things are not going as planned. Let's bring in Gabe Olsey because that's who the players are like. You know, they're like, oh, I miss playing with Gabe Olsey. You know, like he's just better with me. So I can certainly see that scenario. I think as well, there were quite a few other Overwatch League teams rumored to be signing Gabe Olsey. Like, people know that he's a great off-tank talent in Korean Contenders. He reminded me a bit of Janu when I watched him, because I think he was talented and he like could play very well without too many resources. So I liked what I saw from him. But I think we all agree that like Punk is a really good off-tank. But I think the question is going to be like how he integrates into this team with the new additions. And I think he has to play a bit for his starting spot here, because I think unlike Fusions, I don't think Fusion's going to see that much play, because Stand One is like going to solidify himself as the primary main tank player of this team. But I think Punk really has to prove that like, hey, I can, bring it alongside these guys and we can be successful, and you don't have to worry about the off tank role moving forward.
I would actually like to see them as well. Hopefully this ignites a bit more of a fire within Fusions again.
Yeah,
to get back up.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that I would expect Boston to start Fusions. I think everyone should be expecting Stand One to be the starting main tank. But I think when you're in this kind of position, it can sometimes reignite motivation with players that had previously been really driven to get into the scene and looked pretty promising when they were coming in, and then just had disaster after disaster. And I don't think that Fusions is better than Stand 1, but do I think there's possibility that Fusions could get better than Stand 1 at very specific roles? Like if he was a Rhine specialist for the team, I think that is something that could happen. Like if Fusions actually got driven to play for his spot because Stand 1 has come in and taken it from him, essentially, do I think that it's reasonable that Fusions could grind to the point where he is like the super to Stand 1's Smurf? Yeah, I think that is actually a reasonable possibility here. It all comes down to whether the coaches want to implement him like that and whether Fusions is driven enough.
I can see it 100%. I'm not just saying that because of the UK mafia. Like, I genuinely could see a world. The conversation I've had with Fusions, he was a driven player when he came into the league. He maintained that kind of drive even at Boston's lowest moments, which not many players do. Most of them just cash a check. And you could see in the games how much it meant to him. He's oftentimes one of the only person calling when Boston were playing.
He also had that moment where it all got overwhelming for him and he like slammed the desk and stuff. The guy and he was totally frustrated. That was 2019.
The guy wants to compete. He wants to perform at the highest level, but I think he has been failed systemically by Boston over the course of his career. And I've spoke to him about what he thought. I've mentioned this a couple of times on the podcast, but his thought in terms of having like competition with a main tank player, and he relishes it. The opportunity to learn from another main tank player, to compete in an inner working of a team for that main roster spot. I could 100% see a world in which Fusions actually does get playtime, as much as people are expecting him to roll over, especially because Stand 1 as well. This might be a hot take. I'm not too hot on Stand 1 as a player. I think he looked good in Shanghai because Shanghai are a fantastic team and he was surrounded by very good players. But ultimately, he was the downfall of Shanghai in some scenarios.
I mean, I actually kind of agree with you. A little bit, not entirely, but I kind of agree with you. I think he's consistent and I don't think he needs to be amazing. Yeah. And so there's room there for Fusions to punch upwards and maybe replace him in a few metas. I agree. I don't think Stand 1 is the next big thing either, but I think he's sort of what Boston needs right now.
And
I was just going to say,
never had another tank on the roster.
Is that Axiom?
Yeah, Axiom.
Axiom, but
Axiom actually was. Axiom was starting and trying to. When I remember going to one of the early homestands in Washington actually, and Axiom was starting and shot calling for them, and they were rotating that main tank position around, trying to find something that worked. Yeah. So I think he has actually played with people that could have taken his spot in the past.
I just wanted to add with Punk as well. I'm expecting Punk to just be hungry just because he's from the Oceanic region.
Yeah.
The amount of opportunities that those guys get is zero, essentially. If you make it into a team, they are going to try. I mean, the honeymoon period that happened when Punk came in, I think he eroded away the curse of Boston, the misery that enveloped their local home. When he came in, because he was just a driven individual that came in, and it was like his change of pace. You could tell through their team cam POVs last year that it was a different vibe when he came in.
It's contagious when you have a player that comes in that's really driven to succeed because it's their shot, it's their opportunity. Other people kind of get fired up because they're like, yeah, this guy actually believes. Yeah, we can do this.
Hey, this guy gives a shit. Whoa, everybody wake up.
Yeah.
Color Hex, I don't see too much hope for realistically, but I think he adds a situational DPS role that he can fulfill at a given time.
I don't know what that role would be though.
Yeah, I'm not sure. He's always had a weird hero pool.
He does have a weird hero pool. He plays the Genji, he plays the Widowmaker, he plays the Pharah. Those are his three best, I would say. Valentine, the thing is, all of the VODs of Valentine that we've watched have been recent, and so you don't tend to see the same breadth of heroes because the metas have been kind of aligned recently. So I don't actually know the full depth of Valentine's hero pool, but he seems mega flexible. He's playing heroes that are utterly unrelated from each other. He just seems like he'll play whatever. So
I will say I watched some of his gameplay Valentine, and sometimes he'll play hero he's not super good at, but he'll make the adaptation just for the sake of the adaptation.
Yeah.
I watched, I think it was, am I mixing up Valentine with someone else? I think I watched some of Valentine's Tracer.
Yes, he played a lot of
Tracer because it was required. I don't think it was insanely good. It held up, but I don't think it was amazing.
Serviceable.
Yeah. It's like Sparkle, honestly. When Sparkle moves to Tracer, it's actually maybe even Sparkle is better actually, but it's he's not a Tracer specialist. He's not going to come in there.
Neither is Color-X.
Yeah, no, absolutely not.
Right.
No. But that's what you got Soon for, I suppose. But the thing is, I can see Stand 1's role on the team. Double hit scan meta. Stand 1's going to come in with Soon, probably, and they're going to play, like, I don't know, double sniper if it was Hanzo, Widow, or it's
You
like...
mean Color-X?
Color Hex.
You said Stand 1.
Stand 1 is going to come in and play Hanzo.
Not Stand 1. I mean, I'm
Fusions
37.
is going to dominate the main tank role so hard. He's going to send Stan 1 to the fucking projectile DPS. And Stan 1's going to pick up fucking Hanzo and Widowmaker.
No, I meant I'm 37. Sorry. I said
37.
I'm 37, I think, is going to be purely for double hit scan. I don't really see him replacing Soon. Unless Soon is like hardcore Tracer specialist or something. And even then, I'm 37 would just play the Ashe or the Widow or whatever it also pairs with it at the same time. Color Hex, I don't understand the niche that he would occupy. It's not as simple as saying, well, it's double projectile meta. Like, what? What is double projectile meta? We've never had that before. Yeah. So, I don't really know what he's going to do, but I think maybe he can carve his own niche out based on...
Yeah, I was going to say double sniper, but even then I think Valentine would probably play the Hanzo, right?
And would Soon play Widow, presumably?
Yeah,
I mean,
I
actually
Widow.
don't know whether Color Hex has a better Widow than Soon. That sounds kind of silly, but I mean, Color Hex's Widow is nasty good.
I guess if
Soon's
if
Widow
you
was really
needed
good,
to
though.
switch to something other than Tracer, maybe then you would see Color Hex play the Widow.
I don't know. I mean, the thing is,
at least they have depth.
It's always nice to have the option.
Yeah.
God,
you know?
can you remember what they were like last season when they only had Color Hex? Color Hex and Jerry. Oh my god! It was like if they couldn't fit those two on comfort roles, your meta was dead. I mean, you just threw away Boston Uprising because they didn't have anyone else to go back to. This is a 9-man roster.
Let's take a look at the whole roster
comprehensive
and give our general approaches to this team. What our general thoughts are. I mean, we've already kind of came to a conclusion, I think, with this. But in my eyes, I've actually, my opinion's gone up since talking to you guys about this team. I definitely, I mean, I don't think they're D tier, but I think that they're punching into C. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they're rocking around at C. I don't know where they land within that kind of division.
Wait,
Johnny, you're
you think
shaking your head. Do you think they're higher?
I don't know what that means, Bren.
Well, that's what I mean.
What does C mean?
We got to keep it ambiguous.
Okay, like A, B, C, and D tier. So C would be slightly below average in North America.
But then why are we just not ranking?
Well, because we're saving it.
Because we're blue balling the
saving
viewers.
it for the
we need another episode.
Yeah, we're saving it for that fated episode. I mean, we're still doing episodes, kind of, but we're saving it.
We're cock teasing them.
Yeah.
I think this team hovers around C plus, and will probably find one, maybe even two tournaments where they get B or B plus. If they find the right meta, okay? I'm not saying that will happen, but if the meta is there, I think they can punch up. Huh?
What is the right meta for this team?
I don't know. Probably Soon Tracer and Valentine
Echo Tracer
or something like that.
That's what I wonder about. Because then what? You've got Ball, a Ball and Diva or something.
Sigma, Ball, Sigma,
Echo, Ball.
See, because
Echo.
to me, the success of this roster, I think personally that they have enough flexibility at DPS that they should be fine there. I mean, Soon and Valentine, even if they were the only two players you have, can probably hold their own to make you average in North America. No problemo. And Myeongbong, God tier, really have a lot of faith in Myeongbong personally. Yeah. For me, it comes down to Stand 1, Punk, and Faith. Those are the three people that are going to define whether or not this season is successful for them.
Do you think this will be a good dive team? Winston, I don't know why I'm fantasizing about Winston, Diva, again, and Tracer. That's just never
Winston
gonna happen
still
again.
even in the game?
That's dead.
I mean,
yeah, he's garbage.
I don't think.
Oh my god.
See, the thing is, Stand 1, I just never really saw play Winston that much because Fearless always was playing it. And so
that's fair.
My understanding of how good Stand 1 is on Winston is based on when he played contenders for Envy and stuff. Yeah. It's so outdated, it's useless. So
sure.
I don't know. I don't know whether the tank line is really suited for that. I see this tank line being best in double shield, really. But maybe that's just because it's what they've played most recently.
Yeah, I mean, I would be down with that too. I think that's the beauty of this team, is that I do I do think soon it's gonna pop off to some extent and like prove once again that he's actually really good at the game. And then I think it's all about Valentine, like finding the groove on a hero. And whether that's like Pharah, Genji, Ashe even, like if he can just pop off and just like come into his own, the backline will figure itself out. Punk will be good. Stand one, as long as he doesn't mess up, I think it'll be fine. I think this is a good, versatile roster. And I think they could find themselves in a few different metas, being comfortable. If they don't like overcomplicate it, or like, oh, we're gonna sub in Colorex every third map, and then we're going to take fusions on control maps, and it's like, no, just play with the best players.
I kind of agree with Johnny. I think that they're C right now. I think with an outside chance of moving into B, like if they hit on a few things, like if Myeongbong levels up his play, Valentine comes in, like lives up to the hype. And then maybe we see better play, you know, from Stand One or Punk. Like they're not far away from being able to contend like in the B tier. They just need a few kind of things to pan out. But I think probably worst case they're C. I can't see this team kind of faltering down to where we've seen them in the past.
That's why I feel good about them next season, is because I think with the addition of Laurie and the WGS trio, they have essentially boom-proofed themselves. Where there's enough new blood in this team this year, especially, I'm not even saying just with the WGS guys, with Soon as well, because he's just such a veteran presence, and with Stand One on the roster as well. I think they've essentially stopped themselves. They've added enough new talent so that the memory of failure is no longer the prevalent one for the Boston Uprising. No matter what roster they field, they're not going to remember being shit slammed. They're going to just feel like it's new, like it's fresh, like it's a new leaf. They can achieve anything.
A full restart.
Yeah, and I think that's very hard for a team like that to completely boom. I think it's more likely a team like maybe even Toronto or Houston booms than a team like this does. I'm not saying that I would expect Toronto or Houston to be worse than this team overall, but I think in terms of like percentage chance of just shitting the bed, this team actually has weirdly quite a low chance of shitting the bed.
You've even though been through it.
Yeah. The bed's covered in shit. You're cleaning it up right now. Yeah. You got rags in your hand. You got a little.
I mean, at that point, they're not cleaning that. They chucked out the sheets. They bought new ones.
Yeah, new sheets.
Fusions and color
hex. You don't clean your sheets when you
Punk and soon. I mean, at that point, you are throwing them out.
In the bed.
How many times have you shat on your sheets?
0 times, as far as I'm aware.
Yeah, I've never shat on my sheets, but if I did, I would chuck them out.
Yeah.
What? You know?
Yeah. You know, you absolutely should if you did that.
I mean, I wouldn't attempt to clean that. You'd break your dishwasher. Your dishwasher.
Your dishwasher? You're putting your sheets in your dishwasher.
Yeah, so I would go clogged in the last place.
Is that why your dishes are so dirty?
I mean, I was about to say, no, we're done with this.
I think we're done with this episode. I quite like the conclusion we've come to here. What a reasonable discussion we've had over the state of Boston Uprising. Yeah?
Boston fans should be
cautiously optimistic.
Yeah.
I think is the takeaway. If you're a Boston
they should rise up.
Yeah, or uprise, as it's known. End the episode.